There we go. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Open Shutter Live this Wednesday. I think it's the,
13th?
what date is it? I think it's
13th.
December 13th.
December
Right.
13th.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome to Open Shutter Live. You can see everyone is here. We have a full house. Right. And we are talking about simple ways that you can improve your portraits. Um, portrait photographies can be very rewarding and very fun. 'Cause you like that interaction with people, getting to meet new people, getting to photograph new people and document people's daily lives can be very interesting, but also can be overwhelming if you don't know how you are how to get started or what you are doing sometimes. So the goal of today's show is just to share with you guys simple examples of how we shoot and tips and stuff that we always use in our daily portrait works that have been very beneficial to us. So we're going to go around the table. We're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Evans, as you guys all know. And if you're wondering, I have rebranded my channel and all my
Nice
stuff.
shirt,
It's
man.
now EverMore Media. So, welcome to the show. Let's start with Mr. Kobby Katalist.
What's up,
Hello
Ryan?
everyone, my name is Kobby Katalist on all social media platforms, a portrait photographer based in Sacramento, California. And today is going to be exciting because we are talking about portrait photography and then some of the tips and tricks. So I hope I'll be able to give out a lot of tips and tricks that's going to help all of us to take us to the next level.
100%. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to learn from you, man. That's what I'm here. Yeah. Mr. Bryan James on the internet. Mr. Bryan James on the internet. You got reception in the basement?
Yeah. Yeah, I apologize for my lighting today. I tried something new. It's not working. I promise I look better than this. If you saw my last post today, you'll see that's not true. I did something crazy today. In any case, I'm a portrait and street photographer in Toronto, Ontario. If you don't know me, I'm, as Paul says, Mr. Bryan James on the internet. So I hope I can share a few portrait tips with you today, but I am no expert, so I will only give you my opinion and go from there. Meeks Photography.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Salom. Business name is Meek Photos. I am on YouTube, IG as Meek Photos Vision. I'm a wedding and portrait photographer, but I do wander a little bit just to, satisfy my other photography interest. So I'm in Texas, and if you're around Texas, I'd like to collab with you. So I'm excited about today's topic because I like portraits, and looking forward to hearing what all you guys have to say too. All right, Paul.
100%. Hey, Rundell. Hey, Tony. Just quick shout out. I was just on another Zoom call with Rundell. We did there's like a travel Zoom thing, just like prior to this thing. So Rundell Rundell's like a co-host of the Nomadic Mat Network travel thing. Anyway, point is that Rundell has like a YouTube channel too that he just started, and he is like a dope editor, like next level stuff. So Rundell, you should like drop like your YouTube link in like the comments because I think people should really subscribe to you because his editing is crazy. So yeah, just want to say that. And if you guys don't know who I am, my name's Paul, based in Toronto. Run a photography meetup group called Get Out Shoot. And since the stay-at-home order was announced yesterday, we will be doing a plethora of virtual meetups.
Plethora.
So if people have ideas for at-home photography exercises, please let me know because that's going to be going on for at least a month. And yeah, if you guys haven't checked out my YouTube channel, it's just vlogs on photography and my life. And some of it makes sense and some of it doesn't. So it's a pretty good pitch, right? I'm going to end off with that. I think that's a good ending.
Good ending.
Yeah.
It was a happy.
All right. My name is Bryan. I am a photographer and videographer based in Brampton, Ontario. And I just like to get out with my camera and take photos. Lots and lots of photos. That's about it.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Welcome to everyone in the chats. As we go through, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and we will get back to you. We'll try to check the comments from time to time. Also, just a reminder, if you look in the description of the video, we've got everyone's social media handles down there, so you can check everyone out. We also have a link in there for our Facebook group, the Hybrid Shooters group, where you can join in, share your work, meet other creatives like ourselves, ask questions and stuff like that during the weekdays when we are not live. So throughout the whole week, you can go in there, share your videos, share your photos, you know, get
Yeah.
constructive criticism from others. All right. So let's get started. Who wants to go first? We want to share tips for portraits. Simple but effective tips to improve portraits.
Well, maybe I'll start because I don't have images to show right now because we are still in the intro phase of the discussion. But the first question I want to ask is when it comes to portrait photography, what are we actually focusing on? When you're taking the picture, what's your mindset? Because remember, when we say portrait photography, some people can also talk about fashion photography, some can also even talk about lifestyle and all of that. So when you talk of portrait photography, I think the first thing you have to know is what is the subject matter of the image. And for me, I always say that portrait photography, the subject matter is the individual in the shot. You are portraying either the personality of the individual, you are showcasing something about the individual, not something the individual is wearing or whatsoever. You are not selling anything, you are selling the individual themselves. So that to me is how I figure out what portrait photography is. And so the end game is how beautiful can you make the subject matter in the photograph look, or how presentable can you make that subject matter look. So I don't know if anyone has some add-ons or subtractions or stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I agree with that completely because the whole goal of a portrait is to capture that person and make that image presentable or in a way that the person themselves are going to feel good about themselves, right? Um, you want to be able to flatter that person. You know, it's photo photography is just like, to me, is like when a guy meets a girl for the first time, right? You want to impress the person. You want to tell them about themselves. You want to tell them about their looks and stuff. But picture yourself as a photographer standing in front of a subject. It could be a girl or it could be a guy. But your goal is to capture that person in the beauty of what you see so that the person can, you know, feel good about what they see about themselves, right? We always say that the camera adds on an extra pound, right? So how do you photograph a person so that they don't feel like they've gained an extra 20 pounds just because of the photo, right? All of that comes to play into portrait photography from my point of view.
I
Yeah.
suppose one thing you could do for that, Evans, is you could use, an 85 millimeter or something and back up, or I think Stallone uses like a 135, I believe, but that kind of slims the face a bit. So if that is something they're worried about, a few extra pounds, it's something that you can back up and compress that photo and slim down their face a little bit. And then I think another trick you could do is I learned from a headshot photographer, but he says he pretends that there's a string attached to the person's nose, and he pulls the chin out just a half inch towards the camera, not the chin, but almost as if you're pulling the face, because it elongates the neck and makes the jawline stand out a little bit more. So it kind of makes someone, especially if they're a little bit heavier and they have a double chin, perhaps, it gives a little bit more definition. So I think that's, there's a couple tricks there that you could use if you're trying to make someone look their best.
Okay, so on that point, I think we should go around and let's talk about lens choices for portraits. So let's start off with lens choices for portraits,
Mhm.
and then we can work it down into categories.
Mm-hmm.
Brian has already mentioned the 85 lens, and Nick's favorite, the 135.
Well, yes.
Anybody
Oh,
else?
I have something to say about the 135.
All
So,
right, go ahead.
so the 135, you have to be a little careful with the 135. If you do headshots and you fill the frame with a 135, the person's face actually broadens a little bit. So you have to be careful with that, and that's why if you are going to fill the frame and stuff, an 85 might be a slightly better choice. But if you are doing full body or half body and stuff like that, the 135 is good enough. And of course, you can always in post, just in Photoshop, slim the picture down like by 5%. It's not much, but it makes up for the lens distortion. So just bear that. Don't just use the 135 all the time because you want the bokeh in the background.
Yeah.
So just
So why do you choose the 135?
So I choose the 135 because I don't know, if you look at a lot of my pictures, I'm not doing close ups. Some people's Instagrams have lots of close ups, like from here up, from chest up and stuff like that. I don't do too many of those. I always step back a little bit, and I do like the compression it gives me, of course. And somehow there is some level of sharpness to it that I just can't explain. But when I pull up a picture, I can tell that this was shot with this lens and this was shot with this other lens. I think it's just the quality of glass that Sigma used for that. That might be what gets me to use it.
So you touched a little bit on composition, which we will come to later on.
Okay.
But I want to give everybody the chance to talk about what their favorite portrait lenses are, and then we'll move on to composition.
Okay.
Well, my favorite portrait lens is the only one I have. It's the 50 mil. That's the only thing I got.
So
It's a
why the
1.8.
50 mil?
1.8. The lens was like $175, and I really like the depth of field. It's a 1.8, so it gives me really, really nice bokeh, and it's really sharp, and it's not expensive, and that's why I like it. You don't need to spend a lot of money on lenses. You just got to pick the right lens for you, right?
Awesome. Okay, Bryan.
Which
Bryan?
You.
I'm talking about McGowan. Yes.
McGowan.
So
Bryan with a
for
Y.
me, I use everything from 16 to 400. But I love taking my 100 to 400 out and using that for portraits. It gives, when you're shooting a portrait at a really long focal length, it just gives a look that nobody else is really shooting, because everybody's kind of staying in that 50 to 135. So if you go longer than that, it just gives a totally different look than what other people are doing. And for environmental portraits, 16 mil. I just love it.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah, it's good.
Mr.
Good one.
Bryan James.
For me, for environmental or full body, I like to use my 35 or my 50. And sometimes I kind of like to do 50 mil from the waist up. And if I'm getting in tight, I like to use my 85. I just think it gives a really beautiful look. And I'm not super concerned with blurring out the background. It just kind of depends on what's behind me. So if I'm not worried about what's in the background, I'm going to be shooting at like f4, f5.6, somewhere in there anyway. So I preserve all the detail. But if I do have an ugly background, then that's what I'll use, the lower apertures. But I would say 85 is my go-to, especially for anything tight. But I use my 50 a lot as well. And like Paul said, it's cheap and it's sharp for what it is.
Awesome, Mr.
All about
Katalist.
Yeah, well, almost everyone knows my favorite lens is 85. Yeah, it's 85, and it's not because, as Bryan said, it's not because of the shallow depth. Sometimes I shoot, f5.6 and all of that. But the reason is that when I was learning portrait photography, one of the things I learned was that the human eye is around 52 mm. So the 85 kind of gives an extra arm's length closer to the subject. So that's like a form of intimacy without being that close. So anytime I use the 85, I have that closeness to the subject. And so it makes the images appealing when someone sees it, whether on social media or in the main light. And also, if I should go the extreme of shooting with a maximum aperture, that's a 1.4, 1.6, the kind of bokeh swelling that you have, it's almost cylindrical, it's almost circular compared to the ones that the others give, like the ellipse or any of those stuff. So that's more of the technical side of things. But basically, I use the 85 because of the intimacy it gives the images.
All right. So before you go on, Evans, let me add something real quick before you go
Go
on.
ahead,
So,
Mix.
one thing I would like to share is that for a long time I stuck with 85 and 100. I just like longer lenses, and but then when I started using the 35 for portraits, I think my photography actually improved when I started using the 35 for portraits, because I was now paying a lot more attention to the background. I was making the subject um I was I was considering what was behind me, and I was creating art with the background and the subject. But when you're just blurring out everything every time, you don't consider those things, and it's just focus on the subject and just blow everything out. And that can just be something you get used to, but it will limit your growth in photography in general. So make sure you go wide and tight. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and like I was just about to say that we all know that traditionally we want the long lenses because of the compression, the bokeh and stuff. But sometimes you should be restricted to those kind of rules, right?
Yeah.
There are times where you want to be able to free yourself and just try something different, right? So you can try 60 millimeter for a portrait. You can try something really wide angle portraits. I was trying to find an image to share, but maybe I'll share it during the as we go. But I remember a while back I was out with Paul and we were doing a workshop down at the
Graffiti
graffiti
house.
alley, and I had just got the Tamron 17 to 28 lens. I decided to shoot portraits at 17 millimeter on that lens, right? And you get some creative stuff out of that. But you also have to figure it out. What kind of client do you have, or what kind of portrait are you looking for, right? If you're going for the artistic look and not the traditional portrait, you can use the wide angle lens and play around with your compositions and stuff like that to get something very unique and different from what you would normally get from the telephoto lenses that we always use for portraits.
Yeah.
Personally, my current go-to favorite for shooting portraits, I use the 85, but for the last couple of months, I've been sticking a lot with the Tamron 70 to 180 for the Sony E mount. Because, man, that lens is sharp all around, even though it's not all the way up to the 200 that we always know, 70 to 200. This one is basically, I think it's a 75 to 180, but I still love it, right? Because I have that full range of motion to zoom in from all the way from the 70 all the way to the 180. I know most people will recommend prime lenses, but a zoom lens is also good enough as long as you know how to use it properly and all that stuff. But I wanted to talk about the next step, which is I know we're all talking about the f1.8 and the 1.2s in the 85s and the 135s. But what do we think? What do you guys think about the fact that right now a lot of photographers out there it's using the shallow depth of field as a clutch, right?
Mm.
Is for almost every shot. So right now it's like everybody buys a lens and the lens stays at 1.2 consistently throughout the whole day.
Hmm.
Right. What do you guys think about that?
Hmm. So you're saying change of the aperture.
Correct. So
You're saying go to like f11 or
personally,
something.
for the last couple of while, I've tried to. I mean, I still shoot at my shallow depth of fields, but imagine that you are shooting a wedding and the person has spent a lot of money on a location, right? And at the end of the day, you deliver the images, and the beauty of the location is all kind of blurred out
Right.
with an f1.4 lens,
Right.
right? What do you guys think
You
about
want
that?
you want to show like the actual location too.
Like sometimes I feel that as portrait photographers, we should be able to feel free to show the location a little bit more, depending on how bad or how busy that background is, right?
Hmm.
But it's like some of us have gotten so used to the shallow depth of field that even if it's a beautiful background, we always automatically go for that shallowest depth of field.
Yeah. Now, does like the couple ask for like the location to be shown in the photo, or is it like?
Well, I'm just talking in general. Like, is it
Yeah.
just me, or do you guys feel like?
I think it can be a personal preference, but I think I do agree that a lot of people are the 1.1.2, and they're just honestly, I think people just want to use that capability. Like, I paid all that money for this 1.2, and I'm going to use it. And they blur everything out. And so I would agree that, like, especially at a wedding where you want to see the flowers in the background, and you want to see the, if you have a father daughter dance, and you want to see the expression of the family members in the background. But for portraits, what I do is I kind of say to myself, in the location that I'm at, like I was thinking of Graffiti Alley, like in the location that I'm at, does the background add to the beauty of the model, or does it take away from the beauty of the model? And that's kind of where I decide whether to roll down to like 1.8 or shoot it like a f4, f5, something like that. So it can be used as a crutch, but
yeah, depends on the background. Really.
I think it's just a big trap, quote unquote trap, and sometimes you just get caught up in it, especially if you are very new and you just got all the expensive equipment and you want to look like the expensive photographer who is charging this much in your area, and you try to mimic that, because I think it's kind of like a trend. With time, it might actually slowly start fading away, because that's how people are determining what a good photograph is. But I've realized that around here in Texas, people determine with light, because almost everybody's using light. There are very few natural light photographers here, which is weird, and I feel like I might have to switch to natural light. So it depends on area to area, but yes, a lot of new people, myself included, like when I first got the camera, I'm like, why did I pay for a 1.4 lens, and you want me to shoot at f4, f5?
Yeah.
But a 1.4 lens, shooting a 1.4 lens at f4 will probably be sharper than like a 1.8 lens, something like that. So still, there's a benefit to still purchasing a high quality glass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So,
so one thing that I'll say is, if you give me a 16 millimeter f11, I'll shoot in Dubai any day. If you give me a 135 f2, I'll shoot in my backyard. So it's more of, what do I want to hide and what do I want to show?
Sure.
But to some extent, to about 78% of the time, it's all about preference. And also it's mostly 90% about appeal, psychological appeal. What do people like, or what do people deem as professional photography? Because one thing is, most of our phones can shoot, can take pictures, but only a few of our phones can actually blur the background. So most people also that shoot at say f7.1, f9 and stuff, people go on their page and then they say, oh, it looks like a point and shoot. So most people have associated shallow depth of field with professionalism.
Yeah.
And those who want to appeal to the masses go with what appeals to the masses.
This is what the masses want.
Yeah. But then if you go deep into commercial media stuff, or let's say you go deep into, say, magazine shooting, editorial and stuff like that, and then you realize if you are not shooting between f7.1 and f11, they are not going to publish your work in the magazine. Then you start realizing that there's difference between mass appeal and then commercial appeal.
Commercial appeal.
Yeah. So I think it's just preference and psychological, appeal.
Awesome. So let's talk about composition. What can we do in terms of composition to improve our portraits? Any tips on composing
Mr. Bryan James will start.
a nice portrait?
Composition.
Bryan, let me know when you are ready to
line.
talk about that image in there.
Whenever.
Which image? We talking Bryan James or Brian McGowan?
No, where am I going? I think we
McGowan?
gotta do
You
uh
gotta go last names.
If you
B
want us to shorten it, we
and
can
BJ
shorten it. We can call him BJ and then
and BM.
Yeah, let's call this one BJ, the one above me. Let's call it BJ.
I don't know if you want to be calling someone BJ on a live session.
This is what happens to get demonetized.
Oh, man.
You want Mr. McGowan to show a photo?
Yeah, I think we have a photo
Yeah,
queue.
let's
So
go.
Brian, maybe
Okay.
we can go with that first, and then we'll go back to talking
Solid.
about the
I
composition.
love this guy. This guy, man, I love this guy. Axeman.
For me, it's about the story you want to tell with the image. That's what it comes down to, is what story do you want to tell with an image? And you've got one shot to tell that story.
Mhm.
You want to light it right, you want to pose it right. And that's one of those images for me anyway. I've always loved this one.
Yeah, it's very mysterious.
Yeah.
A lot of power behind this photo.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add something to what BM just said, which is basically our eyes go from highlight to shadows. And
Mhm.
for me, that's how I always look at how to create or to compose a shot. For instance, if you look at what's on the screen right now, when I look at it, the first two things I see is the edge of the axe and then the side of his face. Then the light leads me onto his clothes or the hat, and then it goes like that. So our eyes appeal to highlights more than shadows in a way. So I look at composition in terms of contrast from that angle, but there are a lot of other composition techniques that one can look at. So maybe whilst we go on, we'll keep talking about them.
Mhm.
Great
Awesome.
photo. I love this guy. He's been in a bunch of your stuff, man.
That's actually Andre, for anyone who doesn't
Is that
know.
Andre?
Yeah.
That's Andre.
I couldn't tell that was Andre.
That's
Paul,
100% Andre.
Paul, I think you're going black.
Is
How do
Andre?
you miss Andre?
Is Andre in the chat?
Paul,
I don't know.
even I could tell that was
I haven't
Andre.
seen
If Andre's
him
in
in
the chat,
yet.
I'm sorry, Andre. It must have been the axe.
All right. So, what other compositions tips do we want to share for portraits?
Okay, so if you are taking a photograph for someone, a portrait for someone, you want them to look good. So I think if you ease in and get to know, it might be a little tricky, but you have to be smart about what questions to ask and stuff like that, so that you know what they are, what parts of their body they're uncomfortable with. You understand? And so you know which parts to highlight and stuff like that. And that can take the portrait from a 5 to like a 9 for that person. Maybe not for everybody, but you're doing it for that person. So that you shouldn't have a blanket rule for everybody. It should be from shoot to shoot, from person to person.
Definitely.
For Evans, you talked about composition. So for me, I like to use the rule of thirds in such that I like to have their eyes in the top third of the portrait in most cases. And of course, some rules are meant to be broken. But to me, my portraits are normally thirds both directions, where the eyes will be across the top third. And then the thirds that split the frame is usually about where their eyes is. So for me, that makes it the most interesting. And I feel like when you look at a person, when you meet someone and go to shake their hand, you kind of see from the waist up, and you're looking at them eye to eye. So for composition wise, that's typically how I plan my portraits.
Awesome. Anybody else want to share anything on composition, or I should go on with the next question?
I think we'll come back on the composition at some point.
So the next thing I wanted to say, which is still in line with composition, is when it comes to camera angles, right? I know there's a lot of argument there on camera angles and what camera angles looks flattering and what doesn't. What do you guys tend to gravitate towards in terms of camera angles? Because I know some people would say that if you're shooting full length, you want to try to aim the camera at the belly button level, or you gotta aim the barrel at or some want to shoot from top down, some want to shoot from the bottom up. What do you guys find that works best for you?
I'll jump in first on this one. For me, sometimes, like for the camera angle, really depends on what emotion you want to convey with the final image. Sometimes you want that straight on shot, but sometimes you want to get low to really convey a sense of power in your subject. So you're getting really low to the ground and shooting up at them, so they're really imposing in the shot. But sometimes you want a sort of almost submissive kind of look, so you're shooting down on the person. It really comes down to the look you want to have with your final product at the end. And just, again, know what you want before you go into the shoot. But also don't be afraid to change it up and experiment. Get low, shoot low, but then try the high shot too. And learn what the difference is when you do it, so that you know how to achieve the look you want to achieve going forward with future shoots.
Keep moving around.
So when it comes to camera angles, there are three things that you always have to look out for, and I know this is normally taught in the film schools more than the photography schools. And I don't mean classroom. I mean the YouTube schools. So when you're when you're shooting from below, you are communicating more of superiority or alphaness of the person. So when you're shooting from below, you are showing that kind of confidence. When you're shooting from above, it's more of submissiveness or that kind of low confidence. Now, when you're shooting at an eye level, it's more of relationship. Like, we are all standard people at this moment. We can relate. So depending on what you want to communicate, especially when you're shooting people of power, let's say mayors, governors, CEOs, managers, you would like to just go a little bit down, a little bit, not too much down like a fashion pose, but just a little bit down. Maybe the lens is just around the chin level, but it's still aimed to the eye, just to give that superiority. If you are shooting boudoir, you prefer to shoot from up down, just to show that kind of submissiveness. So when you're shooting dead on like this, I don't know whose image is this, but I'm sorry, let me just use it for my example. It's more of relationship. You can relate. Okay, I can see this person at my eye level, so it makes sense to me. I can relate to the image. So depending on what you want to communicate, the angles are really, really important.
Yeah.
Okay, very well said. Yeah. So the rules, of course, like we all know, the rules are the rules, but you learn the rules and then you work around them. So
Yeah.
you can have very strict rules, but let's say you go to shoot a governor or someone who people are different. People have different noses. Some people have their nostrils actually turned back a little bit. So if you go just a little lower, you'll be shooting into their nostrils. Now, if you follow the rules, you're gonna have a portrait of the mayor with his nostrils right up
Yeah,
there. So
exactly.
you have to work with such things, and in such a case, you have to quickly adjust, and you just shoot straight on or go a little bit above. And like you mentioned earlier, when you're shooting above, it doesn't always convey that the person is not what did you say, confident, but it could
Yeah.
convey like it for sensual poses and stuff like that. They can be
Yeah.
confident in their own way down there coming up. So yeah, for this shoot, I went down because this place is almost like your graffiti alley, and they
Cool.
somehow this was I wanted to get this shot like a few minutes earlier, but it got a little darker, so I didn't get as much of the background as possible. But she used to model and then she stopped for many years. She's like the director of a health something, so she has a pretty big job, and she wanted this shoot to be like her break in back into modeling. Actually, did this shoot yesterday. I'm editing them right now as we speak. So she wanted to look like she was free. She wanted the shoot to look like she was breaking out of her shell and free. So in fact, she told me at the spot because we couldn't agree on the theme to shoot. So for this shot, I just tried to make it as comfortable as possible, and it took a while for her to get this comfortable. The earlier on she was struggling with the poses. I was messing around with my lights. I always try to use lights to enhance my portraits. So I was
Cool
working on that. And the funny thing is, almost every single shot that she picked, these are the shot that she picked, she was not looking in the camera. I gave her about 88 proofs to pick 10, and almost every single one, she was not looking directly into the camera. So now I've learned something extra about her. But I do have others that she was looking in the camera, which I'm going to edit and probably show her that, hey, look, you can still look good even though you were looking in the camera. So it was just like a learning curve right there.
Cool shots, man.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Nice, nice.
You're doing the Lord's work.
trying.
Whoa.
Hmm.
Bryan, is this from that video you had a while back?
Yes, sir.
Nice. If you guys haven't seen that video, check out Bryan's channel. This girl was awesome. Like doing arts with steels. It's
Plasma torch
unbelievable.
cutting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm a sax player too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's actually done a few instruments like that, and she just cuts patterns into them. It's really cool. And it made for a great photo, great portrait of her, just working.
Wow.
That's wild, man.
Evans, I wanted to share because we just talked about the angles, the 3 angles. I was just thinking about it. I have a shoot with a model where I did all 3 angles, and the only thing I would disagree with Kobby, what you said when you shoot from the top down, it's kind of more submissive. I look at it as more intimate. But so here's the son of a.
No, I mean, right. I agree with you.
deleted the
I agree
photo.
with you with the intimacy. That's the thing about intimacy, right? It's submissive. You're trying to sex. How will I put it?
Yeah, I think submission and intimacy go hand in hand.
Yeah,
Kind of.
I
Yeah.
could
Right?
maybe
They kinda
it's just a
balance out.
descriptive word. So this shot is from low. So I'm about her calf level, shooting up to give her that kind of powerful, I'm in command type feeling. And then I shot from the top down, and I really like this because to me it's more intimate, but also I think it kind of like draws you into the eyes.
yeah.
Nice
There's
one.
more like the relation, like
Right. So
relationship.
whereas the shot before was more powerful, and this one is more like
It's more
sensual,
intimate.
sweet.
Yeah, more intimate.
Exactly. And then the last photo is from straight on, and it's one of my favorites. And is that one there? So this is more like a relationship, like we know each other. Although most people don't meet each other with an orange and over
You
this.
don't? You don't?
Face.
That's
But I like
really
it.
nice,
It's great,
though.
right?
That's really nice.
Hey guys, I just want to take a second to welcome Visuals by Abe to the community. I met this guy a couple of days ago, and he's here.
Welcome.
Wow.
to the community.
Welcome, bro.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, man.
He's also on YouTube. He does some wonderful stuff with DaVinci Resolve and editing skills and stuff like that. So
Nice.
I should check him out. I need help there.
yeah, you should check out Visuals by Abe. There's this thing that I've been trying to do for a while, but I've never really get time to do. And this morning he just posted a video on, that before and after slider.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to get it done. Nice.
Wow.
Cool.
All right, let me share one image because I told everyone to have images ready and I haven't shared nothing. So as we're talking about composition, let me share this one here. So for this image, it wasn't planned, it wasn't posed, it wasn't like it just was wedding, getting ready, bride prep kind of stuff, right? Basic stuff. But if you look at the composition, I always try to do the rule of thirds, but I also always try to give more room to where the subject is facing. So if you look at it, you realize that I've positioned her a little bit more to the left, giving her a little bit more of a breathing room on the right hand side where her face is pointing towards. Right. That's one of the things, because I've seen you could be creative and you can move the person all the way to the edge while she's looking at the other way. But I think people tend to look more pleasing. Images tend to look more pleasing when you give direction, like you're giving like the person room to look, right, where their face is pointing towards.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think when it comes to composition, it's quite difficult to be honest, to pinpoint and say this is the best
Best,
composition, this is the wrong one, because every composition, regardless of how you put it, um, it expresses some form of emotion, some form of feeling. Unless you basically made a mistake. And I love the space, the room, but sometimes I prefer the negative space more. I don't know, for some reason, maybe because I'm too much into liking cinematography. But when the face of the person is facing the other way around, so let's say the subject is facing here and there's more room behind,
behind. Yeah.
because then it's like whoever is looking at it, it's racing with his mind, because the mind is not used to people having negative space. So that is used more in cinematography once again, but in photography, it can pull that kind of feel if that is your style. That's a more stylized composition.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's very true.
Whose photo is this?
This is from Brian,
That's cool.
or should I say BM?
PM. What store was this?
Brian, where is your head? Were you hiding your identity?
This is actually shot in an old Navy.
Ah,
We were doing a photo shoot in a mall, just walking into stores. And this was in Old Navy. I just saw the mannequin and I thought, we got to use this for a photo quick. That's
because it didn't have a head.
Was that at Bramley City Center?
It was at Bramley City Center, yeah, in the Old Navy.
That's what I looked
Oh,
at. Yeah.
I haven't
I'm just looking at the lines, and the design of the store looks really
head.
familiar.
Yeah, no, I thought it would be a cool, different kind of photo.
Definitely cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's got a vibe to it.
Awesome. So I'll share the last one, and then we'll maybe move on to that next one. So this image here, I just wanted to share the angle, right?
Oh yeah.
This one I'm shooting from the bottom up, trying to give that feeling of power. So like we were talking about, you can play around with angles depending on what look and what you're trying to portray in the final image.
Yep. Great shoot.
All right. Next thing we want to talk about, shooting outdoors in bright daylight.
My favorite.
What tips can you give out to someone who is going outdoors to shoot? Let's put OCF aside for now. We're talking about natural
Sure.
light in
Natural
the
light.
broad daylight.
Let's
why are
go.
you trying to say let's put big aside? That's not
No,
fair.
we will come back to OCF stuff, right? We'll come back to lighting when we're actually lighting the subject. But for this segment, I want to talk more about lighting in the terms of available light, right? If you're shooting out in the broad daylight, what are some of the tips that you can do to get a more pleasing, flattering image?
Look for shade.
Yep.
That's if you look at the photo that I have queued up there, we found a little nook that I could hide her in and just let just this soft light come in. It was actually bright morning sun, and I just put her in a shaded area and shot it from there.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Just if you can find shade, you get nice soft light on the whole thing, nice and even, and it works really well.
Yeah. So first rule, look for shade. Another one I'll add is look for alleyways,
Mm-hmm.
because then you have the sun, coming from behind, and then in front to you have more
Right.
of an even light. Look for, I'll say, look at the time of shooting.
Yeah, we know the time of shooting, but I'm talking about tips that in case you have no control over the time of the shoot, right? For example,
Okay.
I know we all tend to um, we all know that at the end of the day, you want to shoot during sunset, right? Just before sunset, golden hour, blue hour, that kind of stuff. But if you have to shoot anytime outside of ideal conditions, right? What kind of tips or tricks can you use to kind of get a little bit more of a visually appealing, pleasing image?
Okay. So then I'll change the third one. The third one, I'll change it to use flags. Flags in the sense of use things to block the sun.
Exactly. And my favorite thing for doing that is the scrim. So if you have that 5-in-1 reflector, you're going to realize that the middle piece is translucent. You could use that depending on how big it is to kind of block the sun or diffuse the sun before it hits your subject if you cannot find shade, right?
Yeah. And if you can't block the sun, bounce the sun.
Yeah, and like you said, an alleyway. I was just looking for the photos, but I took some. I took some shot. It was bright daylight, and we found an alleyway that had a white wall and a white cement bottom versus blacktop. So it made like a really nice kind of reflector, a natural reflector, if you will. So
Yeah.
we shot maybe 3 feet off the wall, and so it's kind of like we had a softbox with a reflector underneath us, even though the sun was overhead, and it balanced the light nicely. So, like you said, if you maybe you can find natural things to bounce the light off. Other time, if you have a reflector or something like that, or the scrim overhead, or and sometimes you want that hard light though. Sometimes,
Yep.
if you want to make it more edgy or you want to show those shadows, just make sure you're exposing properly for it. Or I'm a fan of, if you can get away with it without using a flash, like backlit.
I've got one queued up. That's a backlit sunflower field in the middle of the day.
Oh, this one
And
good. I know
that, you have nothing. You can't use flash. You can't use any modifiers. So you just have to position your model right so that the sun is behind her in whatever way possible, or right down on top of her, and it just pose her properly so that the light falls on her well.
Yeah, we're talking about this image.
Yes.
Right. I was trying to talk about my image earlier.
Oh,
All
sorry.
right,
Nick.
so
Sorry.
you can go on this one.
Jump to Meek now. Yeah, sorry, man.
Oh, no problem. So I think you guys all said that Kobby and Evans, you guys all pretty much mentioned bouncing. So this image, there was a large white wall just behind me, and the sun was coming from like this side, and it was pretty much in the middle of the day. I think it was around 2 p.m. or something like that. So I just used a reflection, and then in post I used my highlights to enhance it on their faces a little bit. So yes, natural light.
Awesome. I was gonna say
But
that
the white
too.
wall
So,
trick is a fantastic trick.
yeah,
Yes,
that
it's like the
wall trick
biggest
is-
reflector you can ever find.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, like we've talked about the backlighting, but then you combine the backlighting with like a reflective wall, like a white reflective wall. If it's something is like that is available, it's beautiful.
I had this image that that board represents that perfectly, but let's go on. I'm unable to access my handy, so I'll go on Behance and then I'll get it out and
Awesome.
then show you how it was shot.
All right. Now we've talked about lighting outdoors. We've talked about, natural light outdoors. Now let's go to mixed territory.
I was just gonna share another natural light picture.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I will
Go
share
ahead.
it. Just in case you guys think I didn't shoot natural light. So
Banger, eh?
this picture is
Nice.
is from my bright and airy days. I wanted everything to be bright in the picture. So
Harrisburg
of
or
course,
Texas?
you said this is Harrisburg. Yeah, Harrisburg. Yeah. It was of course overcast, and I just moved here completely out of the sun, and then when it's out of the sun, it's an overcast day. The image is pretty well evenly lit, so you can drop your shutter speed and have everything properly exposed, and you'd be good to go. All right, I'm done.
Okay,
Nice
so
photo.
let me see if I can share this.
Listen,
Today we are sharing a lot. Oh, that's good.
the whole idea is to talk to people, share examples, because I mean the whole idea of this community is we're all working photographers, right? We're not
Love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we are working photographers first, and then YouTubers second. Unlike the other places where you go, they tell you about something they don't practice, right? We tell you what we practice. So
Yeah.
This is
So
very, very
this
cool.
image I shot it
Dope.
outdoor. It was around 1 p.m. in the afternoon, hot sun. But then, if you look carefully at some of the images, especially this one, I was able to get the face properly lit because there was a tall building right opposite on the other side, which bounced the sun back to his face, although the sun was behind him. So, I mean, sometimes you can just use the surroundings, see what you can bounce around. If you can't bounce around and it's going to be an interference, you block it off. This Wisconsin, by the way.
Very good.
nice. Okay, so now we've talked about natural light. Now let's talk about natural light with fill light, right? Um, there are times where the conditions will not allow you to shoot just natural light, and you may want to fill in with a little bit of flash. And this one, that's what I call mixed territory. Mix is the master of flash,
No,
So
there's no such thing. Everybody on here uses Flash.
yeah, we all do. But the Texas guys are
Yeah.
the OCF
I'm trying to
boys,
keep up here, man. Here they're like so advanced.
All right, so let's talk about OCF. What advice would you give to somebody who is just learning, beginning to use Flash? What kind of advice will you give them, and tips will you give them when it comes to getting started?
Okay.
Experiment and fail a lot. And it's
Fail.
okay to fail.
Yeah, of course.
It's okay. You're going to do it a lot.
Yep.
There's a
Nice.
Texas vibe for you.
Ooh,
Yes.
Nice.
oh man.
Very nice. Very
Hey,
nice.
let's check this website.
That's sunset, obviously, off-camera flash just to fill in her and still get that nice sunset sky.
Yeah.
Just balancing the two.
Nice. Where was that shot, man?
Scottsdale.
Scottsdale, the gift that keeps on giving.
It's a great place, buddy. Great
Gift that
place.
keeps on giving. Well, one day, hopefully, when we can leave our houses, we'll get back there.
Yeah, we have to, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good.
So
Yeah,
I'll
I
share
think-
this one here.
Okay, go ahead.
So this image, Brian, you should know where this is.
I know exactly where that is.
You got kicked off the roof.
I had security coming after me. So what I did was just took one Bear Bob AD 200. Have
That's
it.
the day you broke it, right?
That's the day I broke it. Actually, had someone just hold it up for me like that, point it over there. Try to get the sunset, but also trying to fill in the model's face a little bit. Personally, looking back on it, I probably would have reduced the intensity of the light a little bit, because it was bare bulb. So you can see all that specular highlights on her
Mhm.
face. It works out sometimes. Sometimes too, you may want to diffuse the light. But for this, I think it was
Sometimes when
okay.
security's chasing you, you just have to get the
Chasing you
shot.
up.
You just gotta
Probably
shoot
that.
and go.
Do it and go.
Yeah.
I've had my fun being kicked out of that spot by security too.
Yeah.
We got kicked off into the meetup. Good
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, one thing I've learned is that for OCF, the goal is try to get your picture close to where you want it to be without the flash being on. And so if the flash is very subtle, it adds to the image. Otherwise, if the flash is too strong and everybody can tell right away that it's flash, then you're probably doing too much to it. And you when it starts to getting darker, like after sunset, blue hour and stuff, that's a good time to learn off camera flash because it gets harder to balance the ambient light with your flash at that time. So that'll be a good time to be practicing how to properly what settings to change to be able to keep up with the ambient, because it gets dark real fast. And if you know what you're doing, you should be able to change stuff on the fly. You shouldn't have to be guessing and getting random shots. So ambient and flash, the difference shouldn't be too big. But it gets harder the darker it gets. If it gets really dark, it's really hard to get that balance going.
And like any rule, though, that can be broken if you really want that underexposed background look to your photo. So again, it's balancing it is good unless you don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like any rule, you can break it creatively as
exactly.
as you need to.
Yeah, like one of the photographers I look up to, Barry Kidd. He's in Harrisburg. He's been shooting for 39 years. He almost always is shooting with bare bulb, and his pictures sometimes are just breathtaking. Bare bulb, f16, f10, f12, and he's really good at it. And he just hates the soft light. Like he tells us that you young people are all about soft light, soft light, soft light. Now, when other people see my work, they're like, "What is he doing?" Because there are too many of us. And just him. But yeah, you're right. You're about that. Yeah.
I think sometimes we put too much emphasis on soft light that we fail to realize that hard light can also be very pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So welcome back, Mr. Bryan James.
He's out of the basement.
Hey.
I don't know what happened. The camera died. So something.
So soft light is good, but hard light can also be very fun sometimes to deal with. This image here,
Nice.
it was shot at broad daylight with Bryan and with BJ and Paul.
Yeah.
We had this workshop downtown. It was broad daylight,
Yeah.
but I wanted to do what we call the night today, right? So this was taking out all the ambient lines and just using one, I think it was an 8200 with an umbrella, right? Just filling in the one side of the face, just like that. If you're going for creative shoots and stuff like that, you can always try different things. It's not always that you're looking for that soft, natural light looking stuff. If you're using flash, your imagination is your limit because you have full control of the light and where it hits and how it hits.
Evans, I got to share the matching image to that. Okay.
Yep.
Because I'm not showing you my screen.
It's not gonna be good, guys.
Come on, just do it.
Go ahead.
Just
I'm
do
ready
it.
for you.
Bam! There he is. There he is.
Yes.
Look at
That was the same spot, same day.
Same spot.
That is an incredible image.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Esquire called. They want you in the mag.
Yeah.
Evan, I didn't know you modeled two on the side.
I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah, he does. He does. There's a lot you don't know
Hey,
about.
when I go out with these guys, I gotta get some shots. I hardly get shots, so
Yeah. Great shot. Great
I
edit.
can't wait for us to be able to head out one time and
Oh
get
my
some.
Oh, I know.
I'm
I
dying.
would say bangers.
Bangers, yeah,
Bangers. The bangers.
I got some bangers, man. I don't know if Tony's still here, but Tony, we gotta get some
Okay,
bangers.
so we are running out of time, so maybe we can go around the table and give some final thoughts.
Totally. Kobe.
It looks like it's starting from me, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
I hope I don't
my-
say a lot
my-
though. One thing I'll say
30
with
seconds.
thank you. One thing I'll say is when it comes to portrait photography, there are some guidelines. People call them rules, but I call them guidelines. Like the rule of thirds, the spiral rule, the triangle rule, all of those things. They are just to guide you. But once you get used to them, you're able to modify them to suit your style. There's nothing like you're shooting the wrong image. there's only shooting and correcting how you create your style. So just keep shooting, keep making errors, keep correcting the errors, get better. Just make sure that whatever picture you're taking is nice.
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh,
Neat.
Do I still have some
Eek.
seconds
all
left?
right. All right, guys. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Yes, when you are shooting portraits, uh, try different things, but don't try to copy one particular person. Eventually, develop your style. Your style might be against all the rules, but make sure you learn the rules and the reason for the rules before you decide on something completely opposite. Just so that you are in the know, and when you need to switch to suit a certain client, you should be able to do that. And yeah, thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget to subscribe to all of us on here. Our names are right below, and give this video a thumbs up so people can
Thumbs
watch
up.
later on.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
You're right, Paul.
Thanks everyone for jumping on. I think hopefully you guys learned some stuff because I definitely did. My forte isn't really portraits; it's more landscapes. So maybe one week we'll do like a landscape thing, and then we can show our landscape stuff. But again, I don't know. We'll see. But again, that's the power of the show is like there's just so much knowledge, right? So more to come on that because that's just why we're doing it, and we're having fun doing it. So that's the whole reason. So yeah, make sure you check out these guys' YouTube channels. We do all kinds of cool content, and we'll see you next week for like a landscape show.
Awesome.
All right. So
Ian,
for me, it would be experiment. Don't you, especially now with digital, you can always delete it. So just try things. Don't be afraid to try things. That's probably the biggest issue I had when I started out, was just being afraid to experiment. Everything had to be the perfect shot, and then I didn't play around with what I really wanted to do. So experiment, and as the photographer, don't be afraid to look like a fool and do the posing yourself so that you can show what you want to the person you're photographing.
Do that all the time.
Yep, Vogue.
Like that, man.
Do it.
You got it.
Thanks for watching, everybody. And Vogue.
And
No, that way. That way now.
right?
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm still looking at my other camera and that's not working. Thanks everybody for joining us. And let's see, what could I say that hasn't already been said? I take a lot of bad shots. I just don't show them to you. So like the other Bryan just said, don't be afraid to experiment and learn, and then eventually you'll kind of come into your own. And it's okay to have people that you look up to and styles that you want to emulate, but do try to find your own thing. And then lastly, I would say find somebody that you can, someone or a group of friends like I have here, where I can bounce stuff off of and get constructive criticism and feedback, because oftentimes you'll throw something up on Instagram or send it to your loved one or your mom or your girlfriend or whatever, and they say, oh, it's amazing, it's beautiful. Well, that doesn't really help you grow as a photographer. So I feel like it's important to be able to get some constructive criticism. Whether or not you agree or not, you're going to learn things, and that's and again, that's another reason that we have a show like this. So that's it for me. Thanks everybody.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Like I said, everybody's links is in the description. Don't forget to join the YouTube group as well, where you can share your work, get feedback, get constructive criticism. That space is what we call judgment-free zone. No judgment. There's nothing like a bad image. We're all still in there learning. Post whatever you want to, get feedback, learn from it, take a better picture the next time, right? That's what the whole community is about. So go in there, join the group, join the community. Let's grow together. And thank you for spending your Wednesday night with us. We truly appreciate you for being here. Go out. Don't forget to keep creating.
Go up
Right.
and say,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For those of us who don't, we're but we can still create at home, right? Look out for more impromptu live shoot sections. One of those. The last time we did a product shoot, one of these days I'm gonna pop up with something else. and try to set up some live shoot. It's just that sometimes some of the stuff that I have in mind, it means I gotta move stuff upstairs because I can do it down here. But we'll find out somewhere. We're gonna do some more live shoots. So stay blessed, guys. Unless someone else have something to add, I think we're good. Look out for new videos coming up on all our channels as well. I have a sensor cleaning video coming up this week. Look out for
Ooh.
that. You want to
Ooh.
clean up your mail first. All right. Anything else, guys?
Stay safe. Wash your hands.
Stay
All right.
safe.
Subscribe.
Stay blessed, guys.
Subscribe.
See you next week.
Like, subscribe, turn on the
Bye.
notifications.
There you go.